pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly!
Flight outside of speed off. Speed off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the SN8 Starship SN8 Nosecone Lift live stream. I'm your host tonight, Ian Atkinson, joined here with Mary Boca Chica gal. She's giving us this live imagery. You can see on the right, the nose cone for Starship 8 is coming around the bend on Highway 4 at Spacex Boca Chica. You can see SN8 itself on the left, up on its launch mount on Pad A. And you can see Starhopper in the center. The crane on the left is nicknamed Tankzilla. We believe that is a crane that will be lifting the nose cone up onto SN8. We currently do not have a timeline right now for when nose cone lift is expected. We assume it may be later tonight, but we'll have to look into that and see what happens with based on wind speed, how their schedule's holding up, and everything else. So for now, right now, we're just watching the nose cone, waiting for it to come up to the pad. I'd like to welcome everyone to the stream. And yep, so we're here for the Nosecone 8, or sorry, the Starship SN8 nose cone lift here at Boca Chica. Alrighty, and if any questions in chat, just leave them off in chat. Tag us at NASA Spaceflight, and we'll be sure to answer your questions as quickly as possible. So the first question here is coming from AVFWT. They're asking, what do you guys think about the possible HLS mock-up being made for the Starship presentation? And so for those of you who are unaware, the HLS, or the supposed HLS mock-up, that stands for Human Landing System. That's the lander system for Artemis that SpaceX and everyone is working on. There's not really anything known about that. They just brought it out onto the other side of the production site and started painting it white yesterday. So we're really not sure what that's for. Maybe they're just testing painting a Starship. Maybe it's going to be a decoration, or maybe, like you were saying, maybe it'll actually be a mock-up for HLS. And what HLS is, SpaceX will be building a dedicated lunar Starship variant, and that'll essentially be a more simplified Starship that's dedicated to only landing on the lunar surface. And so that will not have fins on board. It will not have any aerodynamic surfaces whatsoever. It will not have the large window, window up on the top of the Starship. Instead, it'll have a large ring of solar panels around the top, and it will be painted white. So it's a dedicated lunar lander that SpaceX will be developing. So that's why some people are saying that the nose cone being painted white over at the build site may be for HLS. And we have another question here from Apollo Parks, and they're asking, do you think SpaceX is willing to send a Starship prototype to orbit even if they don't think they can reuse it? For example, orbiting and then destructively re-entering. That is a good question as well, and we'll have to see how SpaceX treats these Starship prototypes. So far, they seem like they want to push them as far as they can get, just to get some extra data on what exactly is going on and how they can improve the design going forward. But if I had to guess, and just again, this is a speculation and guess, I would guess that they probably would not want to go expendable on a Starship to orbit. So we're still a while away from Starship going orbital. Elon has said that they want to do Starship on top of Super Heavy booster to go orbital. And right now, the first Super Heavy booster is only in segments on the ground at the build site. So we're still a while away from seeing any orbital flights. So we'll have to see how SpaceX treats their prototypes, and if they're willing to possibly expend one for the orbital flight data to possibly save some schedule time. Alrighty, and there's another one here from Christian Angelov asking, when do we think Starship SN8 will fly? And there's another good question. There's really, this Starship SN8 is really a brand new, it's sort of a new process. It's bringing on new processes to the Starship testing Starship testing program. We've never seen a Starship with wings get this far in its test program. We've never seen a Starship with 3 Raptors get this far in the test program, or a Starship with a nose cone. So there's a lot of extra factors at play here. They might take a bit extra schedule time than they have before with, say, Starhopper, SN5, or SN6 to get SN8 ready for flight. So it seems like we were at least a week or so away from SN8's flight, but very likely it'll take longer than that. So yeah, we're waiting on nose cone attachment, and you can see the nose cone's rolling right up to the production site here. We'll see the nose cone slow down a bit and then take a sharp right as it enters the pad area. So you'll be seeing they're beginning the turn right now up towards the pad. And another question here from Marcel asking, is this big crane only for stacking or for the launch pad build too? And actually it is, as far as we know, only for stacking the nose cone. They built this crane over on the old gas well site, which is further down the road than the production site. And this crane has not been used for anything yet, up until it was rolled to the production site just a few hours ago, actually. So we believe this crane will only be used for nose cone stacking, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe they'll repurpose it for carrying heavy components for the launch mount, or for some other purposes. So right here we're seeing the nose cone now turning into the production site on the 2 roll lifts there, and the roll lifts are the the wide and small blue vehicles underneath the nose cone that's carrying it. SpaceX uses roll lifts to carry their starships and the major components to the launch site or around the build site. And what those are, they're essentially vehicles that have a very large wheel span. They have a large amount of wheels, and they're able to lift very heavy loads and spread the load across a wide area because of the wheel span. So you can see the roll lifts, they're turning, they're remote controlled actually, so we may see the operators. I don't believe we see them here, but sometimes you can see the operators actually riding on the roll lift, or sometimes you'll see them walking alongside of them. Alright, and just as a heads up here, just for information, the road is not closed right now, or sorry, the road is closed, and we do have a convoy here of sort of like police cars and SpaceX vehicles coming alongside the nose cone as it comes up to the production site. So as you can see right now, the nose cone now is completely at the build site. It is now off the road and starting to go on the ramp up towards the launch site. So we should see the nose cone coming up to Starship SN8 itself in just a few minutes here. Alright, and for those of you who are joining us in the past few minutes, right here we're watching the Starship SN8 nose cone being rolled out to the launch pad. You can see the nose cone there is on the far left. It's just barely in the shot now. It's about to block out the sun. But it's approaching Starship SN8, and we are expecting it to be stacked on top of SN8 proper in sometime today, possibly later. There's really not a set timeline for nose cone stacking. And again, just as a shout out here, we're getting all this imagery here from Mary, also known as Boca Chica gal. She's out there every day recording SpaceX going on. At Boca Chica, we get daily update videos on NASA spaceflight, so be sure to subscribe to the channel to get daily, and now we're beginning weekly update videos to do a sort of weekly recap. So get some thanks to Mary in the chat for providing this imagery on a daily basis. And answering a question here from Nick Robinson in chat, they're asking, are we expecting the nose to be immediately stacked today? And I touched on this a little bit earlier, but we really do not know. It all depends on how they're feeling. And honestly, something I saw brought up in the NASA spaceflight YouTube subscriber Discord, the YouTube member Discord, was someone was saying that it actually might depend on the wind as well. And I'm not sure how the wind conditions are out there right now. It doesn't look too bad, but I don't have any measurements on that. So we'll have to see what's going on about that, what they want to do with their schedule, if SN8, the Starship itself, is actually ready to accept the nose cone. And so we'll just have to play it by ear and see what SpaceX decides. We have never seen a nose cone being stacked on a production Starship before. The most recent, the only one we've ever seen was with Starship Mark 1, which was more of a test article than a real flight readiness vehicle. So we don't know any timeline relating to preparing a Starship with wings or stacking a nose cone on a Starship or even flying a Starship with 3 engines. In fact, just a few days ago, they did the first test fire of 3 Raptor engines at the same time, and that was on Starship SN8. And we do have a video of that up on the channel as well. And Significant in chat is asking, what emotions are you feeling right now? And they said they're feeling jittery, excited. And honestly, I am too. We've never seen, as I keep on saying, we've never seen anything like this happening before in the Starship timeline. So we're seeing everything you're seeing now has never really been done before with Starship. So it's really exciting to see the program sort of maturing over time and watching as they moved from sort of test article views, actually, watching them move from Starhopper, which was sort of just throw something together and see if it flies. Moving on to Starship Mark 1, which is throw something together and see if it survives a pressure test. Eventually on to Starship SN5 and SN6, which actually took flight. So now we're seeing a Starship with wings that will be flying more than just 150 meters in the air. So it's going to be very interesting to watch everything happen here because none of this that we're seeing on camera right now has been done before. And we see another question in here from chat from T-Mac. They're asking, is the nose cone going to be pressurized in the future? They assume this will be where crew lives and sleeps in future missions. Yes, eventually the nose cone will be pressurized, at least on the crew missions, because that is where the crew and cargo, depending on which type of mission they're flying, that's where they will be. So when it comes to, as I mentioned earlier, the HLS, Starship Lunar Lander, the crew and the equipment and all their cargo that they'll be bringing along with them will be stored up in the nose cone. So yes, the nose cone will need to be pressurized. We're not really sure what exactly that will entail, what if they'll need to add anything onto the nose cone to make it be able to hold pressure. But right now, that's really not much of a worry because there's going to be no one flying in Starships for a little while, and there will be no need to pressurize the nose cone for a little while. So yes, the nose cone will be pressurized on future crew missions. And another question here in chat from Norweg. They're asking, is it right that Starship SN8 will be performing a 50,000-foot flight test? And it will be performing a 15-kilometer flight test. I'm not sure how that converts to feet, which is strange because I live in the United States and I cannot convert, I use kilometers over feet. But so yes, Starship SN8 will be performing a high altitude flight test. I believe it is 50,000 feet. And just as a heads up to anyone new who's coming into chat, we're watching the Starship SN8 nose cone rollout here in Boca Chica, Texas. I'm your host, Ian Atkinson. I'm a writer and live stream co-host with NASA Spaceflight. And this video here is coming from Mary, also known as Boca Chica Gal. She's out there doing daily coverage every day, pretty much, of what SpaceX is doing in South Texas. And so she's out there. We have a live streaming rig set up for her, and she's here parked on the side of the road by the production site. So big thanks to Mary for all this live imagery and all the daily imagery as well. Alrighty, and another question here from Gulf Beach Stroller asking, is this the full-size version or a step-down version? So I assume what you mean by that is this a full, all-up Starship with a real-size Starship? And yes, this is a real-size Starship, especially once it gets the nose cone up on top. Then it will be essentially a more basic version of what the full Starship will be. So up until now, all we've ever seen from Starships are just the tank sections and the engines, and that's excluding Starship Mark 1, which again was more of like it seemed to be more of a test article that they could do pressure testing on. And we're going to run through some super chats really quick. We have 100. I'm not sure what that is. I'm sorry, I don't know. From Andre Carmel. And thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the message. And again, we have from Future Martian 97 here saying, thanks for the stream, guys. Mary is a legend. And I couldn't agree more. Thanks for the super chat, Future Martian. From Andre, once again saying, thank you very much, Mary. I don't know how you do it, but we appreciate it. And I think we can all agree with Andre that we very much appreciate everything that Mary's doing here. Also, Storm29, welcome to Capcom. That is a YouTube membership ranking. So thank you very much for this support, Storm. And we have a $10 donation here from XCL Nav saying, thanks, Mary, and everyone at NASA Spaceflight. And thank you, XCL, for the donation. And we have a question here in chat from Chad asking, do you think Starship will launch with its wings in a folded position or an extended position? And that is a good question because we really do not know. Again, this is something that's never really been done before, a Starship with wings being prepared for flight. So if I had to guess, I would personally say probably in the extended position, so where the wings are parallel to each other and sticking straight out. I would assume just to be more aerodynamically stable, but again, we'll have to see what SpaceX prefers, because they've done some things that come out of nowhere that seem really surprising, but when you think more about them, they might make more sense. So I guess we'll just have to see what they're more comfortable and what the fins themselves are actually designed to do. And another question here from Justert P asking, do they motorize the wings? Yes, they do. They are actually using Tesla motors to directly drive or directly control the flaps on Starship. So previously they were planning to do Tesla motors driving the hydraulics on Starship, but now they're doing direct driving the wings or the flaps using Tesla motors. And I believe they are from the Model S, because Starship does feature a Tesla Model S 100 kilowatt hour battery up on the top. And we have another donation here coming in from Gabriel Taylor, saying, you're part of the people that help keep space exploration exciting for everyone on Earth. Thank you. I'm new to NASA spaceflight. Happy to join y'all. Welcome, Gabriel. We're glad to have you here, and thanks for the donation. And to answer Jack's question, are they plaid motors? That I do not know. If I had to guess, I would say possibly not plaid motors, since the Model S plaid has not entered production yet, but maybe they've used some early test units or some early production units of the plaid motors. We don't have exact specifications on what motors they're using on SN8. And from Joel here in chat asking, how tall is SN8 after stacking? So SN8, it will be about 50 meters or so in height. I forget the exact, they change the height of Starship about once a year pretty much. And so we get the most updated numbers from Elon on Twitter every now and then. So I believe around 50 to 55 meters is what the height of Starship will be. And we have another donation here coming in from Jerwa, $5. Covering Chris B's pointy end up royalties. Alrighty. Thank you very much for that donation, Jerwa. And for those of us who are joining, or for those of you just joining us, we're looking here at Starship SN8 on the right, or actually more in the center, and on the left we see the Nosecone that will soon be on top of Starship SN8. The Nosecone is being rolled to the production site on 2 roll lift transporters, which are essentially heavy-duty transporters specifically designed to carry large weights such as Starships. And so we don't know exactly when they plan to stack the nose cone. It seems that they do have the crane ready. You can see the crane on the right. It's been nicknamed Tankzilla, pretty appropriate. But we don't know when they will do the stacking of the nose cone, and that all depends on how they're doing with schedule, if the Starship SN8 is ready to accept the nose cone, and as well as the winds. Which doesn't make as much sense, but the more you think about it, if you have a heavy winds and you're lifting something very heavy on a very tall crane, the wind can become a very major factor very quickly. And if you actually look at the I don't know what to call them, the wires coming down off the crane, they do look to be shaking quite a bit in the wind. And I'm not sure how much crane wires would move in the wind, but it does seem to be there's a nice breeze there in Boca Chica right now. And we have Mary here saying in our backroom control center that the nose cone has stopped moving for right now, and that it doesn't seem like they're going to be stacking anytime soon. So we'll have to look through and see exactly what they will be doing tonight. But it looks like the nose cone is at the pad right now. And I saw a question here in chat. I lost the name, I apologize, but someone was asking, is there a tank inside the nose cone? And yes, there is. There is a small liquid oxygen tank right in the tip of the nose cone. It's called the header tank. And what that is up there to do, that is to feed the Raptor engines during their landing burn. So it holds a small amount of liquid oxygen up there to be the oxidizer for starships, or sorry, for the Raptors as they come in for their landing burn. And the reason that they don't use the main tanks on the landing burn for Starship for landing is because the fuel tends to slosh, and especially with Starship, where they'll be doing a belly flop and flipping 90 degrees to land, there will be a lot of fuel sloshing in the tank. So they need a stable amount from a filled tank to feed the Raptors for the landing. And just going through donations again here, we have $5 from Ray Yunkins. I apologize if I'm butchering that, saying thank you guys, thank you Mary, and thank you Ray for that donation. And another 100 from Andre coming in. Thank you so much, Andre. That's a lot. That's a lot of support that you provided for the channel so far. And a question here in chat from Space Race Watcher saying, "Isn't it a little small to fit 100 people?" And that is a solid question. The nose cone. It is a very large. The nose cone itself is a very large piece of machinery, I guess you can call it. It's a very large object. But that is a good question, whether or not you could fit 100 people in there. And I guess you could fit 100 people in there if you wanted to. But Elon himself has even said that for the initial lunar and Martian missions, they'll have crews of more closer to 10 or 20. So it seems like they'll be doing 100-person missions, like once they get Starship operational, once it's proven, and just to be more of like a large transporter. And wow, okay, we got another 100 from Andre in the chat here saying that he wants Chris. Well, I think we'll talk to Chris and see what he says. And I just got news in the back room that we just hit 150,000 subscribers on the channel. So big thanks to everyone who's subscribed, everyone who's been here for as long as you've been here, whether you're a new viewer or you've been here since Starhopper. So big congratulations to the whole NASA spaceflight team, and thank you everyone for watching once again. And another question here in chat from Jake Kraus, I believe, asking why no header tank for methane. So there actually is a header tank for methane. It's not in the nose cone, but rather it's inside the actual the large methane tank inside Starship. The methane header tank is doing pretty much the same thing that the liquid oxygen header tank is, in that it supplies a small amount of fuel, enough for the landing, so that the Raptors will get a dedicated and uninterrupted flow of fuel. So the methane header tank is inside the large methane tank in the Starship itself, while the liquid oxygen header tank is at the top of the nose cone. And another 50 here from Andre saying they don't want Chris. Alrighty, so I'll pass that memo along as well. I think you're gonna make Chris B feel pretty sad, but yeah. I see a few questions here in chat coming on whenever, or coming up every now and then, asking when will SN8 fly? When do we expect to see SN8 fly? And again, there's really no indication as to when we expect SN8 to fly. And currently, even as you can see on your screen right now, SN8 is not even complete yet. We can see the tank section on the right with the three Raptors, SN30, 32, and 39 mounted underneath. And we can see the nose cone on the left. They're currently, they paused moving it for right now. So SN8 is not even fully built right now. So we're probably a little while away, if I had to guess, probably in the terms of weeks rather than days. So we'll have to see and look for when it comes to road closures and flight restrictions, notice to airmen, and just everything that we've seen so far that SpaceX puts out before their test flights. And Tyler in chat is asking, has Elon confirmed the Starship presentation yet? No. We're believing that we're believing that they're going to wait until after Starship SN8's test flight. However, that is very fluid, and that's very up to whatever is going to end up happening. So we're going to have to wait and see when the Starship update will be. If I had to guess, I would say probably it would be after SN8, but again, that is just a guess. And another 50 from Andre. Thank you so much, Andre, saying 150,000 already, and congratulations to the team. And yeah, it's amazing to have seen this channel grow. I remember back when we first started off, it was like, oh, a few thousand subscribers. That's very cool to see a few thousand subscribers. And now it's like, oh wow, 150,000 people. There's 5,000 or 4,000 people watching me right now. So yeah, it's really cool to watch the to have watched the channel grow along. And we also got another donation, 5 euros, I believe, from Squid King, saying, hey, thanks for everything you do. When do you think SN8 will fly? So yeah, as I said before, we're probably a few weeks out from SN8 flying. And we have another member here from Inkit. Welcome to PadRat. So Inkit has joined the channel as a channel member with the PadRat rank. Thank you, Inkit. And another 3 euros from Spidey, asking, will there be an oxygen header tank pressure test? There will not be, but there was one. So in January of this year, SpaceX rolled out an early version of their liquid oxygen tank in a sort of small, the upper tip of the nose cone. And they did a pressure test on that. That was back in January or February of this year, I believe. So there already has been a pressure test on a header tank. That was earlier this year. And so it doesn't seem like they'll need another one because the design looks pretty similar. And I believe we have Chris Bergen, a request from Andre. We have Chris Bergen has joined us. Hello, Chris. How are you doing? Can you hear me? Ooh. All right. Looks like we don't have Chris yet, but we'll keep you all updated on that. So another question here from Strife asking, can Starship hover on 3 Raptors, or will it suicide burn like Falcon 9? So we believe that Starship will not be hovering, similar to what has been seen on Blue Origin's new Shepard rocket, but rather it does seem a lot more like the hover slam that Falcon 9 does, where it ignites the engines at the last possible second, just ahead of the landing. But Starship will not be landing in the same way as Falcon 9, and where it comes in tail first. Instead, Starship will be doing what they call a belly flop, when they come in belly first like a skydiver, and at the last possible second, they fold the wings back, ignite the Raptors, and gimbal Starship completely vertical ahead of landing. So that is expected to take place on SN8's first flight. So that'll be interesting to watch one way or another. And a good question here from Liam in chat. What altitude do we stop calling these hops? I don't know, and I can't tell you. I really don't know, to be honest. And we just had a donation here from Meryl Ski. I apologize, I'm not sure what that currency is, but 25, and asking, where is it going to land after the 15-kilometer flight? Does SpaceX expect to crater or a success from the high altitude test? So that is a good question there. Starship SN8 will be landing. They have a dedicated landing pad, actually between, it'll be just off to the left of the screen from what you're watching right now, just out of shot. But so there is a dedicated landing pad. It's a large rectangular concrete pad that they've used for Starhopper, SN5, SN6, and they're now going to be using for SN8. So it'll be landing just a few hundred meters from where it took off. And that'll be after its 15-kilometer test flight. And to answer the second part of that question, I apologize there. I just lost that. Saying, what do they expect? There's really, I don't know if anyone's expecting or knows what to expect on this flight. There's a lot at play here that they have not ever done before, such as 3 Raptors firing together, and if reigniting a Raptor in flight, and also moving the fins as well during flight. So there's gonna be a lot of extra factors here at play. And it's even if they do mess up, it's really no big deal, as they have Starship SN9 ready, coming up actually right behind SN8, or not literally behind SN8, but figuratively. They have SN9, its aero flaps or its aero covers are being installed. It's got the hinges for the flaps being installed. And it seems like we're only a few days or a few weeks away from SN9 being completed. So if something goes wrong with SN8, if there's an issue during testing or during flight, SN9 should be able to take up that role within a few days or so. And we had a £5 donation here from Matthew Cable, saying, so happy to see the Nosecone finally at the build site, and can't wait to see the bird fly. And congrats on being, oh, thank you. And thank you to Mary. So thank you, Matthew, for that. How's it going? Yeah, this is very exciting to see happening. We haven't seen a Nosecone on a Starship in about a year, actually. And even then, that was not really a flight-ready Starship. So this is the real deal here that's coming up. And I cannot wait.
Can I just ask everybody in chat to say well done to Ian for this commentary? He's doing a fantastic job, isn't he?
Why, thank you. How's it going,
And
Chris?
I'm also joining because that guy said don't get Chris on, so fair enough. That's a challenge.
I finally get a breathing break here. I got to drink get a drink of water.
Well, it's a great view. The thing about Mary is it's not just the fact that she gets these historic events. It's also there's an artistic element about it. This view we're looking at right now is very picturesque with the lighting, with the sun, and the I don't know what. Oh, it's 5:50 p.m. So it's in the evening now, and you can just get that that view of the Nosecone, SN8, and Tankzilla all there. This is all new view again. Tankzilla only arrived there this morning, so this is all a brand new thing we're seeing now. And it's something to look forward to again because we've got the Nosecone mate to come. We don't know when that's going to happen. We're hoping that it will happen tonight or today. And obviously that will keep it on track towards the next milestone, which will be very much likely to be some pressure testing. We know last night did some line checking, some pressure of the line checking and the chill lines. And that's hopefully a sign that they are ready for the mate. And then the mate will take place. They'll probably do some testing as a mated stack with the pressurization because there's a header tank in that Nosecone. And then what they'll do is they'll prepare for a static fire test, the second one. The second static fire test will be 3 Raptors again, but it'll be fueled from the header tank, which is in the Nosecone. And that is what has been used for the landing burn as well. So that's why they're doing these 2 different static fire tests. And providing that goes to plan, we're then into a path of when they select a launch date. And that is something, there's something which makes you realize how close we are to seeing this thing launch. We've had all those hops. Those hops have been spectacular, let's face it. I still look back on the videos of Hopper doing a little hop. I still look back on SN5 and SN6's hops, and I still think, wow, that's fantastic, and it just looks amazing. But this thing is going to launch properly. It's going to launch at 50,000 feet. It's then going to do a belly flop return, which is going to be surreal because we've seen the animations of it, and it doesn't look, it looks completely different to anything you've seen before. And then, providing that does still go to plan, because something could go wrong before then, and we've got to remember, we've got to expect failures to happen with these test programs. If everything goes well, we'll see the belly flop return, literally sweep back out, horizontal or vertical, with the 3 Raptors on TVC, or thrust vector control, literally pushing the aft downwards, so it's actually vertical, and then coming down for a landing burn, landing on a landing pad. If that latter part goes well, which I think we are now pushing our luck a little bit to expect that. But if that landing goes well, I think it's going to be one of the biggest events in rocketry for a long, long time. and I probably would go back to another SpaceX milestone for that, which was the first landings, the first successful landing of Falcon 9. I think it'd be more than that, because this is a huge vehicle. This is an interplanetary vehicle. This is a super heavy lift launch vehicle when it's with its super heavy booster configuration. This is what we're talking about now. I know people say I ramble on a bit too much about how exciting this is, but I think a lot of us think this, and it just needs to be said as many times as possible, because if you are in a pub, or maybe not in this COVID era, but if you're in a pub or in a position where you're talking to your friends and you get this across to them and they start taking an interest into this, it's great. It's great for everybody, because I think this is something positive in what's been a horrendous year. This is something that we can say, well, what do you remember 2024? Most people will say the obvious, but we've got the excuse. People in here, this chat, the 4,000 people in here now who immediately tuned in to a Nosecone move, will all be thinking, no, I remember Starship testing. And that'll be just something positive to take out this year. And this is where we are now. We're in the possibility of seeing this 50,000 feet test flight this year. And then next year, we've got more to look forward to. We've got the super heavy booster to look forward to. We've got the potential of orbital flights to look forward to. 2022, I think Elon is predicting, I don't know if it's 22 or 23, but he's predicting the refilling tests. The refilling is a game changer, because I know a lot of SLS folk who I follow, obviously, and I don't dislike SLS at all, but I do obviously mention that super heavy is a better vehicle because it lands and can be reused. But SLS has got a lot of power behind it with the EUS, the Block 1B version of it. But of course, that is not taking into account the refilling capabilities of Starship. Starship, when it refills, has the capability, because it's literally it's using only fuel to get up to orbit, and it's getting a fuel tank full of again, and then going on to Mars. And that's where it completely beats everything with EUS on SLS. So that's where the game changer will come on that. And that when a refilling task is successful, then we're on. It's game on. Then we can start looking towards the Mars transit windows. We can look to lunar landings with HLS. There's so many things coming towards this program that we just need to get past. What will be a few more failures, I've got no doubt about it. They will have some hiccups along the way, but as long as we all appreciate this is a test program, and I'm sure everyone in here does, but hopefully the mass media and the like of that will all appreciate it as well. They won't make a big headline out of something going boom again. They will appreciate that it's a test program. Of course, they won't appreciate that, but we do. And then hopefully we'll be able to see some very exciting milestones coming up. And I shall shut up now and read out some super chats, because I just realized I was talking too long. There we go. Right, where are we now? We've got Daz Metal, who's a new member. Thank you very much. And we've got Robert Hobson. Chris told me to tell everyone good job. Yeah, Ian did very well, didn't he? We've got a great team at NSF, and it's brilliant when you put, not the regulars on, but you put other people on who have done it before, but they did get the chance to shine. And Ian did a fantastic job there. And hopefully he'll come back, because I've only got 15 minutes.
Yep, I'm right back here.
Oh, there we go.
You're going on your little SLS. You're going on your little SLS and Starship rant. I was like, I'm just going to let him go.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Ian? I'll quickly get it. I'll tie up that in a little bow. SLS is a good rocket. Anyone who tells you it's not a good rocket is not really thinking about the bigger picture. SLS is a good rocket as hardware, as heritage hardware for safety. The problem with SLS is it costs far too much money and it can't be reused. And that kills it compared to Starship. That absolutely kills it. It's a knockout blow. It really is. And it saddens me to say that, because I think the people working on SLS, I know a lot of them, and they're doing the best, they're doing the hardest to get this thing working. And you want them to be successful. But when it's a versus rocket, Starship versus SLS, Starship wins every time. And that's how it is. And you've got to tell them the facts. Sorry, Ian, go on.
You're good. You're good. That was a nice little monologue there. But yeah, so Starship versus SLS, that's a big can of worms there, and there's not really a clear answer, to be honest. Like you were saying, like it depends on what application you're using. It depends on how you look at it, from maybe the funding standpoint to the program schedule to what's been done and what's going to happen. It's not an apples to apples comparison. And a lot of people are saying it's SpaceX versus NASA, but really it's not. It's NASA looking into other customers as well, because you've seen Starship's going up for HLS now. It's one of the 3 bidders that's up for HLS for Artemis. So NASA's just doing SLS. It seems like sort of a fallback. Like if things go wrong in the commercial industry, you've got SLS there to pick up the gap where they left off. But it seems like right now SpaceX is on track. But again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If NASA canceled SLS and moved all to Starship, what would happen if there was a major accident with Starship? And there was such a multi-month-long schedule delay? That would be catastrophic to the Artemis program. So that's why you got to have multiple parts. If something goes wrong, boom, you go to a fallback. If something happens with Starship, you go to Blue Origin's national team. It's stuff like that. You always have backups.
And the thing with Elon's always said himself, if you ever get a SpaceX fan who says SpaceX is better than NASA and NASA's rubbish and SpaceX is great, Elon himself would be the first to tell you it's not SpaceX versus NASA. It never has been. If it wasn't for NASA, SpaceX wouldn't exist. He said that because it was their contracts. If you think back, if anyone's here around the Falcon 1 days, when the 4th flight was successful, Elon did a speech at Hawthorne. I don't know if it was in Hawthorne then, but it was in the factory floor. He gave a speech to the workforce, and the cameras switched over from the live webcast to show him doing the speech, literally showing the back of his head. But it was an important speech, and he was talking about Falcon 9 and COTS, the contract he got from NASA to do Falcon 9. It was back then. It was literally back then. They were hand in hand, NASA and SpaceX, and NASA's got a lot out of SpaceX in return. The commercial partnerships have been such a success, and that is now the model going forwards. SLS is the last NASA designed vehicle, no question about it. Marshall Space Flight Center will never design a new NASA launch vehicle again. It'll all be contracted out to contractors, to commercial crew, to commercial companies, and they will bid, and then NASA will select. And that's how it'll work from now on. And that is because of those early days with NASA and SpaceX.
Yep, exactly. It's just like how the FAA doesn't build airplanes. So it's the industry's sort of moved out. NASA started being like Jim Bridenstine's been saying, they're moving NASA to be more of a customer rather than a provider. So NASA will incentivize companies to do big things by offering money contracts, such as with the HLS program. Like there's money there to be made for SpaceX. That's why SpaceX is doing it. And so if HLS works out well, that's a lot of money for SpaceX's Starship program. And Starship's going to be a very, very big, very ambitious program. So they're going to need a lot of money for that. But yeah, so NASA's no longer being a provider like with the space shuttle or with SLS. SLS is really the bookend onto NASA launching their own rockets. And from then on, it'll be NASA astronauts flying on commercial vehicles, and then eventually commercial astronauts on commercial vehicles, then private citizens on commercial vehicles. So it's NASA's really beginning to open the doors to allow everyday people to start to go to space, which is something that, as an everyday person myself, I find that very interesting and very hopeful, because I too would love to go to space one day.
You know what? I'd love to go to space one day as well, but I've always been thinking that the only possibility we've got is with the suborbital companies like Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic. But now, I think, again, with Starship, to be on topic, there's the possibility of the likes of point to point. And anyone who knows me knows I go blue in the face about point to point, because I do think it's a massive global game changer if they can make it work. There are lots of challenges with it, especially on local authorities and flyovers and noise and danger zones and hazard zones, I should say. There's lots of challenges, but it's still an active idea they've got. And if they can make point to point work, it would be huge. And it would also give the likes of me and you, providing it does become an economy of scale with the ticket prices, a chance for us to go to space, because it's an orbital vehicle. So that excites me beyond words.
Absolutely. And like honestly, I'd love to do, because on point to point or Earth to Earth, you would have to go to space at some point, probably, if you're doing the long flights. So possibly from maybe New York to London, or even New York to Moscow, maybe, or somewhere like that, like a long flight around the Earth. You'd want to go to space so you wouldn't have atmospheric drag in your way. So that would be sort of a kill two birds with one stone scenario, where you go to space and you go around the Earth really quickly. So I'm sure there's a big market there for Earth to Earth, not just for people, but also for cargo as well. So maybe like Amazon Prime or something to your house in an hour.
Yeah, bring Jeff into it.
Yeah, exactly. I think they would have their own solution, though. I don't think that would happen. But anyway, and also just for
I'd love to see Amazon Prime delivered on Starship.
like a nice light blue starship with the
Yeah,
Amazon logo
the
on.
worlds would align.
Yeah, and
Oh, do
exactly.
we have some questions and some super chats to read out? Because I think we do.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see here. So we do have some super chats here. Another 5 from Inkit saying, "Keep up the good work, NASA and Ian, or and NASA Spaceflight and Ian. Good job. Thank you so much, Inkit, for the €5 there." And then we have another €5 from Stefan in chat asking if we can post a picture on the Twitter without the overlay. And I'm sure we absolutely can get that done. I'm sure Mary's out there taking pictures. And if not, we will probably have a video coming up on this in probably later tonight, to be honest. Then we have another new member from Dane. Thank you so much, Dane, for the membership on the channel. And another membership as well from Thomas. Thank you so much, Thomas, for the memberships. And the memberships are a major source of support for the channel. So big thanks to everyone who's a member on the channel, not just the new members as well. We also have another €5 from, I apologize, I'm going to butcher this, but Gaguim, Giguim. I apologize if I'm butchering that, but thank you for the €5 there. Thanks, big support. We have another membership from Eric with no message on there, but thank you very much for the membership, Eric. We really appreciate it. We have another $5 donation from Tyler asking, do we know with combining the two halves if they will be mechanically or fused together? So if I had to guess, to be honest, they probably would want to weld the nose cone to Starship itself. But we'll have to see exactly what they do. They do like welding with Starship, that's for sure. So I would assume that they would want to weld the two halves together to ensure a solid fit together. Because the last thing you would want is, as you're coasting down to the landing site, belly flopping in towards Boca Chica, to have your nose cone fall off. That would be a bad day for everyone involved. So they probably would want to weld that together. And we also have a membership here from Rick Thor. Thank you for the membership. Thank you very much. And then we have another $5 donation from Java Man. And that's a question for Chris here. Do you think? Oh, here you go. I'll read this out for you, Chris. Do you think they could add more ring segments to make that section as long as the shuttle payload bay? And I believe I believe they're talking about the nose cone itself.
Yeah, I don't think they want to do that because they've got the aerodynamics and they've got the what's called the OML, which is the outer mode line. And these things are important. You can't just start lengthening the thing without impacts to the overall design. It's a very good question because there is a cargo version of this. Remember, shuttle was, as much as I love shuttle, was a mistake by design. It was crew and cargo together, and the crew cabin and the cargo area should never have been done like that. Now, the thing with Starship is they can do a crew version where they've got like habitats and life support and recreational areas inside that Nosecone area. But they've also got a cargo version, which has got like a chomper where it opens up and releases the cargo. And I think that space inside there on the current design is more than a shuttle would ever launch. So they don't really need to think about that. I think they've got far enough capability there. The point is they can't even think what singular payload would be big enough, too big for it, in fact. So I think they're fine as it is.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. And also, yeah, as you were saying, the changing the outer mold line, making it longer, that would not only be such a major design change where you'd have to support the extra weight on top, but also with the aerodynamics. Then the flaps are positioned and designed and sized to exactly what they would need with this Starship shape you're seeing on the screen right here. So making it longer, you would need significant changes to not only the flaps, but also depending on how strong the steel is that you're using, you might need to thicken the steel or add some braces inside so it doesn't crumple or break apart, especially while it's skydiving in the atmosphere. So it's not really how it was with Falcon 9, where it was not a crazy change to make the tanks longer, because Falcon 9 is much, much simpler than Starship will be. Falcon 9 just goes up and lands vertically. And even back then, when they lengthened the tanks, they weren't landing it at that time. So Starship is a very different rocket. It's pretty much a mix between the Falcon 9 and the shuttle. So it's a complicated beast. As simple as they're trying to make it, it's a very, very complicated piece of machinery right there.
I agree. And we've got some other questions here from Matthew Pryor. He asks, let me just take it. When is top expected? We don't know. It could be within a few weeks because if everything goes well, because the Nosecone installation, the testing, then a static fire, a data review, and then clearance to go for it would be within that boundaries of 2 weeks. But I think that is the earliest we'll see it. So I wouldn't get too heads up on the case. Let's do milestones first. I would say let's look towards installation and then the static fire test. And once that's out of the way, we can start looking at potential launch dates.
Yep,
Uh,
exactly. And there is going to be a second static fire here. So we already saw the
yeah,
first static fire test. Was I believe it's 2 days ago. All the days are blurring together for me. But we did see the first static fire just a few days ago with 3 Raptor engines, which that in itself was a major milestone. So they're probably right now doing the data review, and they'll they'll need to do a second static fire. And we believe that might be that they're testing. Pooling liquid oxygen and liquid methane from the header tanks. And again, as I said before, those are the small dedicated landing tanks. So we have a small amount completely filled of dedicated landing fuel, just to make sure that the plumbing is all okay with those. And so we'll have to be looking out for that. But even to get to that milestone, we have to wait for them to install the nose cone, weld it on, and attach all the plumbing related to the nose cone. So we're still a little while out from any chance of it hopping anytime soon.
and what I think we're going to do is we're going to rapid fire through the questions now because we've got two elements in play. One is we don't think the nose cone is moving for a while now. I think it might be to do with wind conditions, and they've got to wait until it calms down before the lift, or there's a shift change or something like that. So there's no point us carrying on live streaming if we're going to be here for a few hours waiting for that. We'll come back if we can or need to. But also there's a Soyuz undocking coming up. So on NASA TV, you could all watch that happening with 3 crew members coming back to Earth. So let's quickly go through these questions. Holden Lieb asks, does it have a LOX header tank in? Yes, it does. This is why we guessed that which nose cones were candidates for SN8 was ones with a special well line where they'd installed the header tank. And this one has a header tank, and that is vital for this. Andriado asks, is there anything going to happen tonight besides the nose cone? No, it'll be nose cone installation. I think that'll be it. Famous last words, but I do believe that'll be how it'll work. Simon Gradsky asks, any idea how they would refit a complete SN8 body and nose back into the test antenna after a successful landing? Ooh, you know what? From the previous ones we've seen with SN5 and SN6, they've moved them from like little small stands to different stands. So I don't think they need to put it back onto the launch site itself. They can put it onto a little stand and then work the things like landing legs and whatever from there. So that's something to watch if they're going to copy the same process as SN5 and SN6.
I think they're actually referring to how would you lift it with the nose cone? So would they keep the nose cone on or not? And that's another good question.
Oh, that's fair question. Yeah, that's a good question because that is different from SN5 and SN6.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know if the nose cone can support it. Maybe they'll need a sort of crane jig that goes around the nose cone and connects chains maybe to the Starship itself. Again, we've never seen a nose cone on a Starship being lifted before, so we'll be watching all alongside of you. And we have another question here. How will they test the header tanks? Maybe on test stand 2? It's coming from Alex. And will they cryo test the header tanks? Sorry, they will be cryo testing the header tanks. They'll be doing that with the second static fire, which will be coming up sometime after they do this. Put the nose cone on. And we have 2 super chats here. One coming from Daz, £2, asking, will Starship be limited by weather like Falcon 9? That is a good question. Probably it will be. At least right now it will be, because the Falcon 9 is restricted to within certain wind boundaries, with certain weather boundaries, lightning boundaries, and Starship would probably be as affected as Falcon 9 would. So thank you very much for the donation, Daz. And we have another one here from E asking, $5 Canadian super chat, asking or saying, just watching these streams, daily updates and discussions has educated me so much on how all this comes together and engineering. Thank you. And thank you, E. And I absolutely agree. Even though I'm on the NASA spaceflight team, I learned so much from watching the daily videos too. So it's been a really big help for everyone involved. And big thanks as well to Mary, Boca Chica gal, who's providing this live stream coverage right here. And who's providing the daily videos, who's out there every day recording pretty much everything going on at SpaceX. If there's something going on, Mary's out there recording it.
Absolutely. And I think what we'll do now is we've got a few more questions, but I'll keep them back and I'll hold them for the next live stream we do, or I'll answer them personally in the Fleet Cam live chat. But obviously now we've got to go towards the Soyuz coverage, and we will come back if there's anything happening of interest. But we know that Mary's be out there anyway. You won't miss a thing either live or recorded. So keep subscribed to the channel. We've got 150,000 subscribers now. We all appreciate it very much. and we shall see you back here at the next live stream event, which may be very soon, but we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining.
See you, everyone. Have a good one.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
The chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic. Flight down SN8 off. SN8 off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.